To me, anime openings are quite a lot like trailers. Often I'll find them before I actually get any information about a show, and I must admit that there are quite a few shows I wouldn't have watched were it not for the openings being bangers. And honestly, sometimes the OP is all I can remember about certain shows afterwards as well. But what is the most famous anime opening? I don't fucking know. With this video, I'm not going to try and bullshit you into thinking that I know what I'm talking about. Instead, I'm going to give you some examples of what I think might be the most famous anime openings. But for the sake of maintaining a facade of actual research, I suppose it would be worth guessing what the most famous anime OPs are based on what the most popular anime is. Going off MAL rankings, our first candidate would be the Death Note opening. But there's a bit of a paradox in that one, since the OP for Death Note isn't typically mentioned as everyone's favourite anime opening, even though it does look very nice. If we go into YouTube and search anime opening and then search by most viewed, at over 100 million views we have the No Game No Life opening. Is this going to be our answer? No, because I have no idea what it sounds like. Now, it's true I haven't seen No Game No Life, and thus it wouldn't be surprising that I have not heard the opening, but even though I haven't seen the show, I do know things about it. I know the setup of its isekai premise, I know what its characters look like, I know it's supposedly good, I know that there's an emoto, so I know the important shit about the show, yet I wouldn't recognise the song were it played to me. So how about we talk about an opening that is so recognisable that it is arguably more iconic than the show it comes from? Well, for that, look no further than... Hey, shut it down. I'm very sorry, ladies and gentlemen, we're getting reports of TikTok in the area. This is a contaminated zone. Only authorised personnel beyond this point. Shut it off. Right, now, if I may take this moment to address any TikTokers in the room, that's better. I heard that dancing along to Renault Circulation has become somewhat of a trend on TikTok. Well, to those who may be interested in a bit of context for the song, allow me to give you an easily digestible paragraph's worth of exposition. Renault Circulation is the fourth opening of Monogatari, which was the first anime adaptation of Nisio Isen's Monogatari light novel series, but is also technically the third in the timeline. Are you keeping up? The song is sung by Kana Hanazawa, who is the voice actress for Sengoku Nadeko, who is featured in Monogatari for about 3 episodes out of 15. The arc that she features in revolves around her telling the half-vampire protagonist Koimi Araragi that she thinks she's being constantly squeezed. After he and his lesbian friend with a monkey arm force her to put on a swimsuit, they realise that she's being attacked by 2 snakes, so they exorcise them by making her suck one of them off. And if you think that's a lot, wait until I tell you about the arc where changing the past leads to a world getting invaded by vampires because a horny teen didn't molest a ghost. Think about that every time you're putting this song in one of your TikToks. Now, maybe that rant was a little gatekeepy, but I have 2 reasons for why that behaviour was entirely justifiable. 1, I have had to watch several TikTok compilations to ascertain the nature of this trend, and in doing so have borne witness to levels of normiedom previously thought to be inhumane. And 2, many of the people who have heard this song don't know that this is actually from the Monogatari series, and the same was true for me when I first heard it back in 2016. I knew that it was from an anime and that it sounded cute, but it wasn't until 2 years later that I started watching the Monogatari series. This opening mainly gets its popularity from the internet, and what's interesting is that it's had different waves of popularity at different times for wildly different reasons. Nico Nico initially picked it up back when the anime first came out, and used it to make MADs, but then in 2014 to 2018, it was all about mashups on YouTube and SoundCloud. This is where I and many other non-Monogatari fans found out about it. And now we've come to 2021, where, as I've mentioned, it's reached a level where the internet's creativity is so integral to its identity that an online cover of it is what brought it back to relevancy. But why this song in particular? Well, I guess it's good, and it really does encapsulate a moe feeling very well. And the fact that it doesn't really fit with the content of the Monogatari series also works in its favour, since it means it can be enjoyed and subsequently recognised by people who don't even have to have watched Monogatari. Compare this to something like Naruto's 16th OP. That achieved memehood back in 2016 when it started becoming fun to take the piss out of Naruto fans. But because of that, it became tied to just Naruto instead of anime in general. But with Renault Circulation, you hear it and think, oh yeah, that's an anime song. Not sure which one though. For this next section, I was going to talk about Guren no Yumiya from Attack on Titan. I talk about how it's almost the polar opposite of Renault Circulation, because it's attached at the hip to the franchise it relates to, and much of its notoriety comes from the song's quality instead of how it's been transformed by others. But then I realised something. Literally every one of those things applies to Unravel from Tokyo Ghoul. Now, while I have more of a history of the first Attack on Titan opening, including when I introduced the show to a friend of mine and the song got stuck in their head while they were doing an RE exam, the truth is that Unravel just has a few more factors that makes it more recognisable. First of all, the Maymates. I'm going to show you this image, and I don't even have to play the music, you're already hearing it. Secondly, there's the fact that the first series of Tokyo Ghoul is considerably more popular than any other anime adaptation that came afterwards, meaning that this isn't overshadowed by the 3 or so other openings. Compare this to Attack on Titan, where so far there have been 6 openings, 5 of which are pretty good. This means that there are other Attack on Titan openings that come to mind instead of Gurren no Yumiya. As for how Unravel was so easy to spread, it's because Tokyo Ghoul, like Attack on Titan, is considered a gateway anime. For many, this was their first exposure to an anime opening, and just how good they can be. I haven't even watched Tokyo Ghoul, but I still know that Unravel slaps, and that's frankly a testament to its quality. I want to mention one final factor in achieving a famous status among anime openings, and that is age. This doesn't just apply for openings, as if I ask you what the most notable anime of the 2010s is, you'll likely have to take some time to think, due to the fact it's just too recent to make a judgment. However, if I said, what was the most notable anime of the 1990s, you'll likely have fewer candidates to choose from. Now, I could be wrong on this observation due to the fact that I'm a zoomer, but at the same time, I can't deny how iconic an opening like Tank from Cowboy Bebop is. This has the advantage of having no lyrics, with the exception of the English speech at the beginning, so there isn't as much of a language barrier for entry, and instead it's largely linked to whether or not you like jazz. I mentioned with Renault Circulation how it has an advantage by not being tied to the show it's from, but the reason for Tank's notoriety is that it isn't even tied to the medium of anime. Show it to someone off the street, and they might recognise the song without even having seen Cowboy Bebop or any other anime. But since I've mentioned one of the 2.5 anime series from the 90s that I've seen, I might as well mention one of the others. A Cruel Angel's Thesis needs no introduction, which is ironic because it is an introduction. Neon Genesis Evangelion divides opinion like no other anime, but the only aspect that everyone can agree on is just how good the OP is. And this includes people who know nothing about the show. I remember back in 2017, I was in English class with that one guy in my year who actually watched more than 5 anime. He then randomly started singing A Cruel Angel's Thesis, and my interest was piqued. I told him, "Oh, I know that song. Do you know the anime that it's from?" To which he replied, "No, I don't even know its name." That wasn't the response I wanted, since if anyone in my school had watched Evangelion, it would have been him. So I told him, "It's called Neon Genesis Evangelion. What's it like?" he asked. "Dunno, I haven't seen it either." And speaking of people who don't know as much about anime as they think they do, the only bit of Netflix's Enter the Anime documentary that didn't make me wish to commit unspeakable acts upon an unsuspecting populace was the bit where they were talking about the popularity of the Neon Genesis Evangelion opening. Don't get me wrong, this moment was accompanied by editing that resembled a mix of Akiyuki Shimbo and a 13-year-old Minecraft channel, but it is neat that they were admitting that A Cruel Angel's Thesis is still iconic after all these years, instead of shilling 7 seeds for another bloody half hour. When you think of anime, you think of A Cruel Angel's Thesis as one of the songs that defines it. But I suppose if I had to pick a favourite between the Evangelion OP and the Cowboy Bebop OP, I'd have to go with Tank. This is not only because Cowboy Bebop is probably one of my favourite anime ever, but it's also because there's another virtue to it having no lyrics, and that is that TikTok can't get its filthy hands on it. At least I don't think they will. Let me just check. Fuck.